Hello everyone. I'm going to ask my my fellow panelists. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, excellent. Hello everyone. Really good to be here doing this webinar today. I've never done anything like this before, so I hope you'll bear with me while I get through my technical problems. Just a little bit about what we're going to see today. The overview, we're going to just have a quick chat about who we are and why this webinar, our experiences of mentoring and being mentees, benefits to an organisation of setting up a mentoring programme. Hopefully we'll talk about internal and external mentors, the pros and cons, a bit about boundaries and training, and then really how one starts that mentoring, that first mentoring, or being a mentee. How does one actually start that? And then a little bit about feedback and monitoring, and then some of the problems that one might encounter, or perhaps personal experiences of what we've encountered. I think what we need to do is just have a quick introduction on who we are. So I'm going to move over to Wakas first of all. Wakas, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wakas. I work as a compliance and contract review manager for one of the housing group. Yeah.
Okay, Trevor, please say a bit about yourself.
Hi everyone. I'm Trevor Bamborough. I'm a CQ manager in the HV electrical sector. I'm on this webinar talking about how my experience of being a mentee.
Yeah, that's really useful. I think having two mentees. Mark, yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Hello, everybody. My name's Mark Glass. I'm a health, safety and environment manager. I work in the pharma and biotech sectors. I've been a member of IIRSM for over 20 years. I've been a fellow for over 11 years. And I have been a mentor with IIRSM since the scheme was originally conceived. So thank you, Julia.
And a little bit about myself. Thanks, Mark. So I've worked in the university sector for over 30 years and seen a lot of changes, particularly a move towards formal mentoring schemes in universities. So I was an internal mentor for a good many years, and then I joined I2RSM as a mentor. I've been a member of I2RSM for, well, I suppose, probably about 30 years as well. Makes me feel old. So I've never been a mentee, so it was very interesting when I first met Trevor and Wakas, listening to their experiences of being a mentee. So I think I really hope that you're going to find this interesting and beneficial and make you either want to become a mentor or to move on to becoming a mentee, or perhaps actually persuade your organisation, or if you're actually in that sort of position in an organisation, to actually set up a mentoring scheme. I think I2RSM will be setting up some further webinars about that whole process at some stage before long. I think it's quite important maybe to have a quick discussion about mentoring versus coaching. So guys, what do you think about what's the difference between mentoring and coaching? Who's going to speak first? Mark, how about you, Mark?
Yeah, I think I have found it, extremely useful. Some of the comparisons, coaching really, I suppose, and there's a variety of different models that you can use to coach people. But I mean, just looking at the screen there, it's a method in which an individual is supervised by an individual versus an advisory process. And we think about the GROW model and what the GROW model does in terms of mentoring and how we might use that model to support a mentee from getting from, I suppose, a concept that they might have from cradle to grave, rather than just telling them what to do. So for me, that's a big part of it. It's allowing individuals the scope to come up with solutions to their own problems, rather than telling them what they need to do, and allowing them the opportunity, I suppose, in a safe environment to make mistakes so that they can, I suppose, support the learning process. So that's probably one of the biggest differences for me between coaching and mentoring, Julia.
Mm-hmm. I think those are all valid points. I think for me, coaching is really about getting the best out of them in the position they're currently in, maybe, rather than career development. And I think with the mentoring, it's very much sort of career development growth process, where particularly with IIRSM, because they've got their standard and their sort of KPIs, and they've got a sort of where you're heading for in terms of leadership or whatever. So that's, for me, is sort of mentoring is taking people along a sort of career development pathway rather than bringing out the best of themselves in their already chosen career. But maybe there's a bit of swapping around. I don't know. What do you reckon, Trevor?
Yeah, I think I agree. And the key bit on the slide, I think, is the long term and the relationship bit. Is that sort of thing where we're coaching, where everyone can be a coach any time inside their business and try and develop people for individual tasks, like you sort of highlighted in the slide. But that long term informal relationship thing, that support, I suppose, is probably my way of getting that sort of bouncing ideas off people. This is where I see mentoring being the key bit, where people are using their experience to sort of help people gain that experience, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, Wakas, have you done any coaching yourself?
I've done not. I mean, I've been coached by someone, but that's what on a very different environment and a different field. For me, the mentoring, I would say, is because if you are new into health and safety, or you want to gain experience, you want to gain the confidence. Okay, I mean, you can read the books, you can get the knowledge, but when it comes to the skills, when it comes to the confidence, I think the mentoring really helps, and I think that's happening with me at the moment, because I've been as a facilities manager, so I have a little bit of health and safety experience and knowledge, but when you want to move into health and safety and you need someone more senior, more experience to mentor you, and plus coaching is more on a performance basis, mentoring actually more to on your career development. Yeah.
So it's allowing people to grow. It's about gaining confidence, not necessarily the competence bit, but allowing you to use what you've learned in a confident way, and the soft skills perhaps, and the political skills that one may need. Okay, so I think that's quite useful. Thank you. I shall try and move on to the next slide. Right, I think maybe a little bit more then about our experiences of mentoring, because some of us have done mentoring and menteeing. I think, Mark, would you like to just talk a bit about your experience of being a mentor?
Yeah, so I mentor for a charity as well, Julia, and it's slightly different to the role through IIRSM. I have found IIRSM and the mentoring scheme is very formalised and structured, and that's one of the benefits that I first of all like. One of the things I think that really helps, and it frames and provides a bit of structure for first of all setting the ground rules, and I suppose establishing the framework is the mentoring agreement. So I have found that really useful, and from time to time I would go back to that. In fact, I have a mentee at the minute, and I'm just looking at the release at the mentoring agreement that we signed back in February of last year. So we have had that relationship developing and for the last year now, and we would still go back to that. One of the new things too, I feel that IIRSM, one of the strengths, I suppose, of the scheme is the new platform that they have launched. So I'm relatively new to that, and it allows me an opportunity to go in there and to put in notes. And if somebody is looking for, rather than a new mentee coming through, maybe officially through a IIRSM point of contact, there's an opportunity there for mentees to come in through that platform and then to select who they would like as a mentor. So I have a current mentee at the minute. There's another mentee had sent me a message on the platform and said, listen, would it be possible? And I just replied back and I said no. So for me, one of the benefits of the scheme there is that I probably only have the capacity at the minute to take on one mentee at the time, but you might have other mentors and they might have a wee bit more capacity. and they could maybe take on 3 or 4, but I just wanted to take on one at a time. So my experiences are very positive, very different depending on the scheme, but for the IIRSM scheme, it's very positive, it's very structured, and the online portal I found it an excellent tool.
Thank you. That's really very interesting. And I think I would very strongly agree about that I2RSM structure, that whole framework, the way it supports the mentor and the mentee, and has a standard to head towards. Trevor, so how about the emotional journey? I mean, we talked when we first met, we talked about how a mentor, how you might be a mentor and a mentee at the same time. Would you like to just talk a bit about that? Because I thought it was very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm coming from mainly the mentee side of things, Julia, but I found it very useful in terms of building that relationship and having that confidence that the mentor that I'm signed up to, knowing a little bit about them through the portal or contacting them, that they will give me that. They've been there and done it almost, and if they haven't, they've got the experience to sort of draw on to help me. So I found that, and I think I've probably taken some things from the mentoring I've been given into what I do day to day. I've now got a team I've got to sort of run, and I've used that to help me. So that's been quite a good experience from my point of view. And building that relationship with someone who has got that experience, that's probably gone through the same process as me. Yeah, they've been mentees and now mentors, and hopefully they become a mentor because they know the benefit of it to the mentees doing themselves. So I found it really useful. I've had a couple of different ones for different reasons, people changing jobs, etc. So it's been quite good to have a different spread of different people come from different, slightly different angles. And there is flexibility, I think, in the system to move around. Going forward, I'm hoping to keep the same one, which will benefit me longer term, I think. But it's been a good experience from that point of view for me. So
are you also mentoring your mentee? Are you mentoring your mentor as well? Because you've got different fields, haven't you?
Yeah. So my first mentor, yeah, it was quite interesting because I was looking maybe to change jobs, etc. As part of, as also develop. And it turned out that my mentor was also in the same situation. He was unable to tell me at the start, but it worked through. Actually, he found it beneficial to talk through with me because he was almost going through the same process, although he was very much higher up the experience chain.
So, the mutual benefits one gets from the program are quite unexpected. Marcus,
and also the mentor said that they really enjoyed doing it, and they said to me, honestly, they got a lot out of it. So that's good for anyone listening. Really good that they got loads out of it as well. I'm sure Mark would say he gets lots out of the process as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Marcus because when he first started with I2RSM with the mentoring program, he and I tried to link up, but there were problems. But he found a suitable mentor. But I just wanted to ask you how that sort of worked in the first bit, Marcus. I mean, how did you feel about that? Because it's not a very nice feeling maybe when somebody doesn't make contact with you. So I felt very guilty because I couldn't actually get hold of Marcus. So I don't know how you felt.
I think we have. I mean, I would have that understanding that the other person I'm trying to approach or requesting to mentor me must be busy or something. I mean, I did feel bad, but not that much. But I said, okay, maybe Julia must be busy or she must be working on a project or something. But because because this is the platform actually. I mean, you can go and find a mentor. Which suits you or which matches you most, for the skills and experience. But obviously, I'm more on a mentory side. So, I'm being mentored. But obviously, as this relation unfolded, what I found actually, my mentor wants my help as well, because he have never does any direct line management for any of the staff. So because I had that experience. So when we started the conversation, he asked me to help him with or mentoring him with the staff management and people management as well. So I would say it's always a two-way communication. You both get benefit. So my experience has been very good. I would say the platforms allows you to set your goals as well, which is very good thing. And the one thing, all the communication in one area. If you want to go back and refer anything in, is already there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, and I hope that the people listening are hearing what we're saying about the benefits to everybody, to the mentor and the mentee, of this particular sort of working relationship. I'm going to move on to another subject. I won't talk about my experience of mentoring for the moment. I think what we should have a quick chat about is why should an organisation support mentoring? It's quite a big commitment, really, for an organisation, because they have to commit resource. Obviously, the people that are doing the mentoring are pulled away from their work. The people that are being menteed or being mentored are being pulled away from their work. There are potentially political issues there if something goes wrong, if it's a small organisation. So there's a number of pros and cons, but I've only really spoken about the cons. What are the really good things about an organisation? Why should an organisation take up a mentoring scheme? Wakas.
Well, I would say, I mean, obviously, I have been mentored in my previous jobs, and it was arranged by organization. Okay, what I have experienced, and what the good thing is the confidence. You know, you build that confidence. You work with someone else who is not your line manager. Okay, there is someone maybe from another department or from other sector or from a training department, and I was lucky to have our training manager. He was mentoring me, so I was very lucky. And then you also just not learn the skills about the job or about the field. You also learn about the organization, how the organization works, their values. You know, that's important. You know, so I think there are many organizations who are actually having these programs for mentoring. And as Julia said, yeah, it's difficult for the resources. Just you need to make sure you have a time. You're doing your day job as well. You need to have a set of time actually where you can go and meet your mentor or have a conversation with him. But I think I find it very useful. You know, yeah.
So that, as you say, that organisational values and sharing best practice and getting to know how the organisation works can be of enormous benefit. So, Trevor, what are your experiences around that? Has your organisation actually, does it have a mentoring programme?
Yeah, so I have not worked for a company that has a mentoring program, but I can see the benefits of that. I think obviously in the sectors that I've worked in, have been very busy, high speed sort of work rate, etc. So coming from a different angle, the external mentoring has helped me in terms of to bring things into the business that can help us visually. So I've had that sort of side for it. So, and probably I've worked better having that external advice from the sort of specialism sort of role I'm in. It's really hard to get that unless I'm in a bigger organisation, to get that in a bigger team. Maybe if I had a director or a line manager that was more on that side, I'm sure that would be very, very beneficial internally. But from an external point of view, it's been really good to bring that extra voice in, that fresh pair of eyes almost, and stuff that I'm dealing with. But I can definitely see the benefits of having a mentoring program for other staff, and maybe me being a mentor internally for my team.
Yes, because of course it's not just health and safety. A mentoring program wouldn't just be about health and safety, and I sometimes forget that because that's all that's important to me. So, Mark, how about yourself? Does your organisation have a mentoring program?
So we don't have a formalised mentoring program, but just from the conversations and from reflecting from our last meeting, that there's mentoring, and there's informal mentoring that happens. It happens within a department, it happens within a small team, it happens within a business unit or a wider organisation. So it would be unfair to say that we don't have a mentoring program, because I would say that we do informally. And I would say that if you think about it, a lot of organisations do, but having a formalised, structured approach, I can absolutely see the benefits. The tangible benefits for both the mentor and the mentee. But I think when you have that formal approach, it protects everybody, it establishes ground rules. I was just thinking there when I was listening to Wakas and Trevor talking, I was just thinking about the portal again, and the portal is very useful because I suppose it's very transparent. So you can actually see, you know, there's images there of people, and there's profiles. And Julia, you had talked about connecting like-minded people. So the mentee that I have at the minute, we're in the same sector, very closely connected, and we didn't realize that at the time. And that was the reason that IIRSM paired us. But one of the benefits, I suppose, with a mentoring program is for the mentor is then you can possibly select mentees. And I think that has an added benefit for the mentees as well, rather than maybe just getting somebody assigned to you. And that relationship maybe doesn't start out maybe the way both parties expected it to. I think you're off probably to a better start if you can see some sort of written criteria somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's kind of takes us to what are the benefits for a mentee. So the benefits for an organisation to set up a mentoring program or to use a formal mentoring program like IIRSM offers are really to protect, to have a standard, to set those boundaries, to help set expectations, because formal mentoring does that, whereas informal mentoring, when you don't even have any training, perhaps it's just, you know, having a chat with someone who's a friend or comes to you for help. So I think that the formal side of things is useful, and having an organisational mentoring program is extremely useful. We've talked quite a lot about the benefits for mentee. Is there anything else that we want to add to that?
I think it's just that gives you that sort of a little bit of confidence sometimes, even if it's just, you know, I'm thinking about doing this, or and this is my sort of solution, and just getting that sort of that feedback saying, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, because sometimes I think, you know, from my point of view, I've sort of worked my way up through into the position I'm in now, and sometimes you're sort of a little bit self-taught, or it feels like it, and actually bouncing those ideas and getting that feedback in a positive, or a little sort of bit of someone who's been there and done it again, like I said, is really invaluable, really. And to feel like you're not the first person to ask that question, because you know, because they can draw on it, their experience, and I think that's and to reinforce what, you know, everyone's really busy, 100-mile hours all the time, and sometimes you need to stop and think, and that's what benefited me, was just to have a moment in time in that week to stop and think, right, I'm having a chat with someone who can help me. It's important for me, my development, and I can sort of speak freely, clearly, and get that support I need. And that was really important for me.
I think that's a very good point. Is it causes one to refocus in a confidential way. You can refocus. You can ask someone to say, "Am I doing this right?" In your experience. And that's a great thing to be able to do. Just take that time out and commit to yourself, maybe. And that's something that I think we're finding increasingly difficult to do, is actually commit to oneself. And with the mentoring programs, one actually does do that. So there are many benefits to being a mentee. I think maybe a quick chat about the internal and external mentors. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because actually I think it would be really helpful to move on to some of the things about training and boundaries. So I'm just going to talk through this myself. Internal mentors, really helpful. You can share local examples, tell stories about what's happened, but then there's confidentiality issues, potentially. So one has to be very careful about that if you're an internal mentor. Another benefit is, of course, the understanding the organisation and its pressures and its strengths and its weaknesses, and where to send someone to go, where an external person wouldn't be able to send someone to go to person X or person Y. But the external mentors, they bring a new perspective, as Trevor said, and also they are more likely to have a positive attitude about the organisation, as they don't know the local problems. They'll ask searching questions, and they won't, you know, they're not going to take knowledge of the organisation for granted. So does that sort of sum up for you the feelings about internal versus external? You've experienced both.
Yeah.
So your Marcus, your mentor is internal, is that right? Because you've got IIRSM, but before that you've had an internal.
Yeah, I did have an internal mentor. Yeah, I mean, When it comes to confidentiality, yeah, that's very important, because there was few things where he was sharing with me, but then I was unable to, talk openly about these issues. Yeah, because otherwise, I would be out of job. So yeah, no,
Yes.
so yeah. No, there has been I would say having an internal mentor is the benefit is obviously you understand the organization better. Okay, it can help you with the job, your existing job. But having an external mentor is then you develop a friendship relationship, which is and then you can talk anything. You can even talk to the person if you're having a problem at work as well, and which you might not be able to talk to someone as an internal mentor. So that's, I think I found it very useful. And also what I found as external mentor, if I had a situation which relates to work and I'm unable to find the answers, and I'm unable to find the solutions, I used to go to him and say, okay, this is the situation. I have done this. What do you suggest? What do you think? And I used to get another opinion, a second opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are definitely pros and cons for both. So let's move on.
I think, Julia, just on that, I think the positive attitude bit is really key in terms of, sometimes we go through a day and you really busy, things are going maybe wrong or not as we want, and just getting that positive feedback it is going okay from someone who's not connected to it is really, really, really positive.
Yes.
I just want to add one thing quickly. I mean, I think it's all what Trevor said. I think it's taking time for yourself. I see this as a self-care time. It's my 1 hour time with a mentor, and I feel refreshed, by the way, when I have the conversation with mentor. I really feel, okay, I have a lot of energy and motivation. Yeah.
That's great. And motivation, that's good. That's good. Commitment from everybody, and then motivation, hopefully, at the end of it all, which is fabulous. So briefly, what makes a good mentor? Guys who've been menteed, what do you think makes a good mentor?
That's a very good question. I think experience, but I don't think that's all of it. I think it's being able to sort of draw out the confidence and provide confidence. Give you that immediate feedback while you're talking and just sort of really make you feel comfortable. I think is key. Obviously, you've got to build a relationship, haven't you? And just sparing the time. If someone wants to be a mentor and they've spent the time and they're able to reply to you, I mean, I know we've talked about the portal a bit, and I had a little bit of trouble trying to get in contact with a mentor I was trying to, and the feedback on the portal for me was a little bit negative. But it's a very powerful tool, I think. But it maybe, it's a difficult one. But yeah, I think the mentor I've had, the really good ones, have been really, really powerful for me.
Mark, would you say active listening was key to being a good mentor?
Julia, it's funny you should pick on me for that, because I'm not a particularly good listener. But yes, I think that is important. And for me, empathy and having very good personal skills, it's really important. It's not all, it goes back to maybe what Waka said. It's not necessarily all about the job and the development of that. And looking at your list there, where you said about initiating and ending the contract, the current agreement that myself and the mentee have, that's probably going for about a year now, and that has changed, and our objectives have changed. And sometimes it's very objective driven, and then, if I'm honest, sometimes there's you have to apply a bit of empathy, and you are just listening. You're trying to understand what the person is saying, and it sometimes can be a listening ear. So sometimes that changes. So yes, listening, but being empathetic is very important as well. Understanding the organization, or trying to understand the organization, trying to understand the department and the influences and the relationships that there are with that particular individual, but just sometimes being, like I said, empathetic.
I think that first meeting is such an important one. I mean, having the contract is really useful, but that doesn't really tell you how to have that first meeting, and that first meeting where it's really just, you know, how are you, what do you do, getting to know each other. One of the things that that we did was use the 16 personalities test. And I can't remember whether I put a link to that in here or not, but that's a great icebreaker, because you can talk about the strengths and weaknesses of one's respective characters, because you have to share with them what yours is as well. So you can say, well, this is where I'm coming from. So it gives you some common ground to talk about, but also maybe some insight into what makes them tick, or if they don't believe in it, it's just fun anyway. So I think that's quite good. There's plenty of training available for mentors. There's some formal qualifications, and I've put a link there to formal qualifications. But there's also things like boundaries training, and IIRSM do a bit of that, but it's not like a formal qualification. I think that if you are going to go on to do professional mentoring or professional coaching, that qualification could be quite useful. But I don't actually know what it teaches one, because I haven't got it. So I'm going to move on, because I think we just talk a little bit more about the first meeting, the most important one. I'm going to run through this because I'm quite concerned about running out of time, because we've been gassing on quite a lot. The first meeting, making friends, that active listening and body language. Now, of course, most of our stuff is done now on the internet, isn't it? It's not done face-to-face anymore. Well, most of my mentoring is done on the internet now, which is really odd. So you lose that part of the body language, which is quite sad, really. But it does enable one to mentor people in other countries. And that means if you are going to mentor someone in another country, then you need to find out maybe a bit about that country, because well, we'll move on to that shortly, but I think you need to do that. You need to find out where they live, but not their postal address, because that would be breaching the boundaries bit. And then, you know, what do you want to get out of this? Not just what the contract says, but what do you personally want to get out of it? Where you want to go with your career? And then make the confidentiality clear from the outset. You know, just reiterate that, and really making sure that the meeting frequency and times and smart objectives, all of those things are kind of dealt with at that first meeting. So you set the expectations at the first meeting. How did that work for you, Ruckus? How did that work for you in the first meeting?
The first meeting, obviously, my mentor asked me my goals, what I want to achieve from the meetings. He also asked me to share my CV with him, so he can look at. Yeah, you know, that's very important. You know, and he really helped me actually with the CV as well. You know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he asked me which field I want to move in. What's my target time? You know, I mean, where I want to see myself in next year or in next 3 years. Then, you know, so obviously then the program he developed with me around all these goals and objectives. And as I said, makes friend, yeah, because obviously now we have that friendship. Even IIRSM portal is saying our mentoring is coming to end at some point. We decided to go and extend our mentoring sessions, and we said we will continue with our mentoring, even the portal is saying is going to end actually. Yeah,
it's interesting because we've heard the friendship word quite a lot during our discussions today, and that for me is really key to it. Even though I had to end a mentoring relationship, and I'll talk about that in a minute, I felt very drawn towards the person because I'd felt I'd made friends with them, and that means that ending a mentoring relationship can be actually quite sad. So yeah. But then that's life, isn't it? This is really important. For me, this is really important. And this is a perfect preparation prevents problems. This is particularly important if you're mentoring someone in another country. different technical problems beset us all now with Zoom and things like that, and the time differences, and you're just being tired, because if you're doing this in your own time and there's a time difference, you might be tired and the person you're menteeing might be tired. It might be a bit of a language barrier. There might be power cuts, there might not be access to IT all the time, broadband width problems. All of those sorts of things have a big negative impact unless you're prepared for them, unless you're aware of them and have plan B. So because I was mentoring someone in another country, I hadn't appreciated those problems, and I learned a lot from that. And it was very sad for me, because I actually had to end that relationship because the time difference was too much and the IT problems were too much, and the fact there were power cuts all the time. But I do hope that because we set up a sort of set of standards to be achieved, that the person concerned got something out of it, and we built on each meeting. But then ending that relationship, that was difficult, and I think IIRSM, I hope as a result of that, of the discussion I had with Dina, actually I think that they put in a sort of feedback loop and how one ended relationships. So I don't know, because I've not actually ended a relationship since. Sounds really serious, doesn't it? How about you guys? What's your experience of it? Mark, you've used the portal. What's your feeling about all of this, being prepared?
It's really important for me, Julia. The first meeting was absolutely critical, and thankfully the mentee that I have is great, and she made it very, very easy for me. Again, the information that IIRSM had provided also provided me. I like a lot of structure, and you talk there about smart objectives and things like that. So I'm just listening to Wagas there. So we did and do set smart objectives, and some of them aren't necessarily time bound. I think I think about the T there, and it's time bound. Some of them, they're not necessarily short term objectives. So in terms of where the relationship ends, I don't see that mentee mentor relationship ending anytime soon. We started off with the mentoring agreement, and we discussed that. We talked quite a bit about some of the boundaries, and I find it useful to come back to that. And I think you have to come back to that every now and again, and just remind yourself. I'm interested to listen to Wagas and Trevor about the meetings. We meet on a monthly basis. Now, there are times there, just with a variety of different reasons, with workload and things like that, that we would have to reschedule, but we never end a meeting without having a date. And if the meeting has been needs to be pushed back maybe a couple of weeks, or maybe even pushed back a month, that will always be agreed. So there's always a date in the diary from our next meeting. And then in terms of structure, again, where do we start? We go back to our last meeting, and it's just a series of notes. And I know the agreement that we have says who would be responsible for that, but I think it's mutual for us. So the agreement has provided a framework and a structure, but we will maybe supplement that. So we'll take our own notes and we will revisit that. So we always go back to our last meeting, start there, and take it from there.
That's helpful. I think the preparation part is essential. Finding out about the person you're going to be helping. Well, obviously finding out about the organisation, whatever it is that you need to find out about without stalking them. That's really useful. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next. Trevor, why don't you just tell us briefly about the benefits to mentees and mentors?
Well,
okay, we've talked about quite a lot of this already.
Yeah,
I think it's just worth just reiterating.
The top one is the confidence. I mean, what I used my first mentor arrangement with, and which ended because my mentor had a new job, moved on, similar time as me. But I needed that sort of confidence, that sort of probably to move on from where I was working for stuff that I couldn't resolve, and it was good that they were able to help me. And then now my new mentor arrangement with someone else is now building on some structure. So it's interesting what Mark was saying, having that structure. At the time, my first mentor arrangement, the structure, I like structure as well, but it wasn't that time. I needed that friendship, that relationship, that bouncing ideas off arrangement, and the flexibility of the mentor scheme gives you that. And obviously, that first meeting, like we said, gives you that the mentor knows what you need. Then I think they understand what you probably need, and it just shows the flexibility in the scheme, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think it works extremely well. So I'm going to move over to some questions. If we've got questions coming in, that would be really helpful. Just very briefly, why I2RSRM? These are fairly self-explanatory. And then there's a number of resources in this presentation as well that you can possibly get to through the webinar. And then it's really just to talk about what the next steps are and then how one might do that. So I shall leave that with you, but you can register via the I2RSM Mentoring portal. So let's go back to this. And I'm not quite sure how we're going to take questions.
I'm here, Julia.
Ray, hello, Sue.
Hi, I've got some questions for you. So first of all, thank you for a really interesting discussion. I think that's really opened people's eyes and ears to what mentoring and having a mentor can mean to individuals. So the first question is, how do I know if I need a coach or a mentor?
That's a good question. Mark, would you like to address that one?
Julia, I was thinking I thought you were the ideal person for that. Can I bat that back? Can I do that?
Oh, he's going straight back. Okay, all right. So I think if you wish to progress in your career, or maybe make a career move, maybe mentoring is for you. If you want to improve upon what you do and approach your current job with new eyes, perhaps, then coaching may be for you. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. What do the rest of you think?
I think that's a good answer. That's a very good answer. I think that summarises it. Very good, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I've been asked to be a mentor for someone, but I feel it's outside of my level of expertise. How do I respond?
Oh, well, Wakas, would you like to answer that one?
That's okay. I mean, Julie, I don't want to give your example, but no. If it's outside the expertise, then obviously you ask the person who has requested what they want to achieve, and then you can say to them, unfortunately, I did have an experience on this platform, by the way. One, I send a request to someone, and that person said no, he thinks it's not suitable for me to be mentored by him. So he said, Vikas, wish you all the best. And, he said, Vikas, go and find someone else who can provide you with that knowledge and experience and skills. So I would say, yeah, if the person has something different and, their area of expertise is different from the person who has requested, you just say to them, be open, I would say, and just ask them, to go to someone else. Yeah.
I suppose the I2RSM matching, the panel, the matching that helps through as well. So if there is a mentoring organisation or it's I2RSM, they will endeavour to match people accordingly. So I think the answer is join I2RSM's mentoring programme.
I think on that as well. Also, the person that's being asked, potentially, I don't know what their stage of their career is, and maybe I'll get asked in the future. It might be an opportunity for them to develop themselves, to try to be a mentor. You might go in with an open relationship, say, look, I'm not experienced at this, but I'm willing to sort of. You might surprise yourself. You might, if you're pushing back saying, I'm not sure. It might be time constraints, but it might be an opportunity to develop or have a first couple of meetings. Say, look, actually, this isn't. But I can put you in contact with someone that might be the right person.
Yeah, Trevor, I was going to say I would dip my toe in and see how it went. Transparency, honesty, and that opening meeting. And I think that opening meeting, you would tell, you've got all those things, Julia. So you've got that matching that you get with IIRSM, But if you're prepared to, if you don't, if you're prepared to give it a go, have that opening meeting. And I think at that opening meeting, you'll determine very, very quickly whether or not the relationship is going to work. But back on to what you said, Trevor, you might be an ideal candidate, and being a mentor for somebody else might actually help you as a mentor to develop in confidence rather than the confidence of the mentee.
Yeah.
The skill set.
Like Wack said, that he obviously he started helping his mentor for different things he wasn't or she wasn't aware of, and it becomes that two-way thing, which is helps with confidence again, like we talked about.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Benefits for both parties. Give it a go. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Sue, is there another question?
There is indeed, yes. Can I have more than one mentor as a mentee? And if so, is this a good idea?
Oh gosh.
I think if you've got certain, obviously the portal allows you to sort of say if someone's put on the portal, a mentor's put on the portal that they feel confident in helping with prioritisation or a certain part of the. I see no problem with that as long as it doesn't get too confusing and who you're speaking to, and if you're quite happy to just do one objective and then you move on, I'd say you've got to be a bit careful. He doesn't get too confused, and then the mentor doesn't think, oh, hang on, that's a bit of a quick turnaround in terms of one thing. But I'd imagine probably sticking with the same mentor would be that they've got wide experience. If they're going to be put themselves as a mentor, they'll be better than swapping around lots.
It's very interesting because I'm just thinking about a group of people that I am apparently the mentor for, but actually they mentor each other. And that's something I would definitely advocate. So I couldn't see a problem with there being more than one mentor, but I think it might be helpful for the two mentors to know that was the case, or maybe not. If they were very different personalities and there were conflicting advice being given, that could be very confusing. So I think you'd need to be careful on who you pick as your more than one mentor. So yeah. Is there another question, Sue?
Yes, final question at the moment is, you mentioned, I think one of the panelists mentioned monthly meetings. Is this the norm for a mentor-mentee meeting relationship?
It is for me.
Yeah. So I think that may have been me. So we have monthly meetings. That was just a rule that we established when we were setting up the boundaries. So we just established some ground rules and we agreed to meet monthly. The majority of the time we have been able to meet monthly, but sometimes we haven't. So we either rearrange it or we skip out that month. But it is for me as well, Julia. That's my experience.
Yeah, monthly kind of works, doesn't it? Otherwise, people haven't got time to digest what they've learnt and maybe put it into practice, or whatever it is that they have decided to do. Anybody else? Trevor, Wakas?
Yeah, I think monthly as a period would work for that. You're thinking, you're not 100% on the mentor relationship. You've got to do your day job, I suppose. But that seems to work. That works quite well for me in terms of getting the diary, because obviously you've got to have flexibility that it won't be. I try and put in programming dates with my mentor in terms of the same, the second Thursday in the month, etc. To try and give myself a bit of structure because things change, and just sort of blanking out the time, like we talked about. Make sure you're committed to the time.
Yes.
I think
Is it typically over lunchtime, Trevor, is it?
What's the lunchtime mark?
Are there evening calls sometimes? Are there evening calls?
I've had a couple of evening calls, but normally try and do something in sort of early afternoon. Sort of works in terms of sort of try and clear. But that's trying the way I work. I'm trying to do all my meetings in the morning, so I've actually got some time to do the day job in the afternoon. But I'm trying to fit that in terms of that. But it's flexible. My mentor has been very kind in terms of the time that they put aside for me.
I think it's also important to just that relationship going as well, and your commitment towards the program. To have that monthly meeting. Even you can short the meeting. So say instead of having a 1 hour, you say, okay, let's have a half an hour, talk, and at least you can talk about what you have done. You have met any objective in the last month. And just keep that relationship going, I would say, and taking time for yourself.
Yes, I would agree. Right, Sue, how are we doing time-wise?
We haven't got any more questions, so I think we shall leave it there for the day. I just wanted to say a big thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience of mentoring with everybody this afternoon. Thank you to everybody else who has joined us. Just to remind you that the recording will be on the YouTube channel either later on today or tomorrow, so you'll be able to catch up or recap on anything in your own time. So thank you again very much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thanks.
Lovely
Bye.
to meet you.